It's hard to imagine where today's commandment from Jesus is followed and lived out. Love one another as I have loved you. All we have to do is turn on the television or open an internet browser, and we are reminded that we live in a broken world, one that does not conform to Jesus' commandment. The brokenness of this world breaks into our lives on a regular basis. Most likely, we all know someone that has been affected by addiction, violence, hatred, suicide. Brokenness surrounds us. Yet Jesus, when he spoke those words, was not aware of our world. When he spoke those words, it was Maundy Thursday. He was celebrating a meal surrounded by his apostles. The passage takes place right after Judas leaves to betray Jesus, and right before Jesus tells Peter, "You will deny me 3 times." Jesus himself was surrounded by brokenness. Brokenness in his world. Brokenness among God's people. And even brokenness among his group of followers. In the midst of the turmoil surrounding him, Jesus tells his disciples, "I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another." At that moment, the disciples can't even begin to understand the magnitude of those words. Shortly, they will see what love looks like. Words of forgiveness to those who put him to death. Words of assurance to a criminal crucified by his side. Words of forgiveness and words of restoration to Peter, who is given 3 opportunities to profess his love for Jesus. But most importantly, Jesus' willingness to give even life itself in order that they and we might come to know a life with God. That's the type of love that Jesus commands his followers to offer. And 2,000 years later, we're still struggling to come to terms with that commandment. We look for caveats to get out of loving one another. That person isn't worthy of love. That person does things against Scripture. That person ... In reading what Jesus says, there is no but. There is no unless. There are no conditions on the love that Jesus calls us to offer to one another. It's just love. So while we're making great strides to obey his commandment, we haven't gotten there fully. There's still tears, there's still pain and suffering. Rather than offering the love of Christ to each other, giving ourselves for the other, this world has animosity, apathy, and ill will. Some people find it difficult to truly comprehend the love that Jesus spoke of. And then to further complicate that love, we have the reading from Revelation this morning, where the writer hears a voice saying, God will wipe away every tear from their eye. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more. Isn't the writer of Revelation talking about a time when Jesus' commandment is fulfilled? So let me tell you a story. There was a woman who was diagnosed with a terminal illness. She'd been given 3 months to live. So she started to get her things in order. And one of the items was to talk to her pastor. So her pastor goes to visit her in her home and come up with what her service is going to look like. She told him which songs she wanted the congregation to sing, which scriptures she would like to have read, what outfit she wanted to be buried in, which Bible should be in the coffin with her. The pastor said, okay, I think we have everything cleared up. Thank you for doing this. It makes my life so much easier. And she goes, oh, no. There's one more thing. I want to be buried with a fork in my right hand. If you do nothing else, that fork better be in my hand. As you can imagine, the pastor was like, okay. She goes, you're perplexed, aren't you? He goes, yup. And she said, in all my years of attending church socials and potlucks, I always remember that when the dishes were cleared, someone would inevitably lean over to me and say, keep your fork. It was my favorite part of the dinner because I knew something better was coming, like chocolate cake or a deep dish apple pie, something wonderful and of substance. So I just want people to remember to see me there in the casket with a fork in my hand. And I want them to wonder, what's with the fork? And during your eulogy, I want you to say to them, keep your fork. The best is yet to come. The fork is a sign of what Revelation is talking about. There is a new heaven and a new earth as the old has passed away. Chaos is no more. God has come to live among the mortals. The peace of Garden of Eden has returned. The reading today lets us know that Jesus' death and resurrection signal that the brokenness, the heartache, and the disappointment that we sometimes experience in this world does not get the last word. Our death is now simply a doorway into God's glorious presence. Jesus' commandment of love will be fulfilled. For now, as we continue to work toward living into Jesus' command, we have to work at seeing that time whenever we can. For Christians, we see that love here in this place where God definitely dwells with God's people. We see God and perfect love in the sacraments and in Scripture. for they are a foretaste of the joy. They are the joy we will encounter after our death. Currently, there is mourning, there is crying, and there is pain. But our faith knows that now all things are being made new. And therefore, we must keep our forks, because the best is yet to come.